Welcome to the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. Of course, I am your host, Dean Phillips. And before I get too far into the Destiny of Manufacturing is powered by the Precision Metal Forming Association. So from Connected Apprentice, and more importantly, from iBusiness Technologies, I have with me the CEO, Steve Metzman. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
It is great to have you here. Usually on the Destiny of Manufacturing, right away I hit everybody with the question of what is your big takeaway for the next 5 years?
Yep. So great question. I think, my big takeaway is that all processes are going to continue to get faster, more precise, and we may actually see an exponential acceleration around AI, depending on kind of, what role that plays. So it's going to be a very, very interesting 3 to 5 years. The technology that's out there is amazing. It looks nothing like the technology from, 10 years ago. And it's really, it'll be something to see what things, manufacturing and all sorts of, building trades look like in, 5 to 10 years.
Sure. So tell me, when we talk about the Connected Apprentice and we talk about the strategy there, how do you see the learner changing what they expect?
Yeah, so there are a number of expectations that I think come together um, when people start to kind of learn their trade or expertise, right? You've got the expectation of the learner. What are they going to be learning? How are they going to be learning? And what does their path look like after they graduate or turn out? You then have the expectation of the hiring entity. What does this what does this apprentice look like when he or she arrives? How conversant are they in what the organization needs them to do? Are they going to have to do a little bit of training, a lot of training, no training at all? So, what we strive to do and what we've achieved in partnership with Apple and a lot of the national, trade associations and technical schools is we try to understand what it is the school is looking to achieve, what they believe their learners are looking for, what their customers, right? Because when they turn out a graduate, that graduate is going to go and be productive either, in field service and manufacturing, welding a pipeline, in the electrical trade, et cetera, et cetera. So based on what the training organization's expectations and needs are, that kind of determines what we load onto the devices. So the philosophy around the Connected Apprentice is we don't really change the curriculum that trade or technical schools are using. We just basically drastically improve the delivery. So instead of students being handed books or 3-ring binders on day one, they're handed an iPad that's been preloaded based on what that training entity has requested. And one of the magical things about device management and the way that technology works now is updates and changes can be pushed over the air at any time. So we're working with a number of national trade associations and unions, and we hear from them that as their best practices and materials changed historically, they would actually have to reprint materials. So not only do you have that additional cost and wasting natural resources, but you also have the lag time, right? So, if let's say a certain methodology or manufacturing methodology changed, they would have to go back to print, and maybe it was 6, 9 months before you had updated materials. But now instantly, those changes can get pushed over the air. So regardless of, what a training entity is teaching their incoming students, it just goes a lot faster and smoother when it's device based. And that's why there's been really meaningful uptake in all different trades around this kind of technology. And the other thing I'll mention is that, in many instances, the training schools graduates will be handed a device on day one when they go to work for a contractor or they go to work in a machine shop, et cetera, et cetera. So this sort of training really prepares them to be successful on day one. So, these hiring entities, they expect trained apprentices to come out and they know how to use a welder and an ohm meter and how to use, device-based software, depending on what it is they do.
Mhm. It's interesting you say that because I agree that the expectation level of people today, from the learner standpoint and from the hiring company that's going to actually bring them in, has changed dramatically. Last year, I gave a presentation at FabTech talking about workforce development, and one of the things that I'd mentioned is that when you have somebody come in the door and you tell them, well, these are the standard work instructions, or this is what the how you go about what you're doing, the process or procedures, and everything is written on paper or hung up on boards or things like that, you're already setting yourself up for a very bad experience with a lot of the modern learners, because this is how they've grown up. This is
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
That's what they've grown up with. If instead, when you were hiring them, you brought them out on the floor and you have a QR code next to their workstation and they can scan it and the standard work pops up and they have a checklist and they can check it on their phones and it automatically updates. Those kinds of things say to the workers that you're hiring today that you're forward thinking, that you are somebody who is embracing technology. Have you heard any kind of feedback along those lines from people?
Yeah, that's a great point. And yes, we have. There is such a growing demand for skilled workers and engaged workers that industries and training programs are now really kind of vying to fill their pipeline of learners. And many years ago, trades and manufacturing, may not have had kind of like the cachet and frankly the earning potential that they have now. We hear from the trades and the tech schools that we work with that they're competing to kind of get these students in the door, and they need to demonstrate high earning capacity, secure futures, an interesting and engaging learning environment, instructors that know what they're doing. So, this sort of technology really kind of helps them keep their program filled and, meet the expectations and needs of their end customer, which is the commercial entity that expects their graduates to turn out and be very proficient in these technologies.
Right. Yeah. And with that, the flip side, of course, we know that these are some of the things that a young apprentice or a young tradesperson may be expecting. What is it that you've heard on the flip side of a company who's trying to use this system to say, this is how we're going to integrate this with our existing training system, or is this going to wholesale take place and eliminate that?
Yeah, so I think one of the many reasons that the Connected Apprentice has gotten the uptake it has is that it does not replace the instructional framework. It complements it. So
Mhm.
whatever the curricula or materials are that are currently being used, that continues, right? So the instructors, once in a while or early on, sometimes they're a little bit hesitant, but when they realize that their instruction is not going to get wholesale thrown out the window, they are much more inclined to go with the program and try it out. And so that's why when organizations use a platform like the Connected Apprentice, we will find out ahead of time exactly what their training looks like, and we'll take their existing materials and preload those materials so that the learning experience improves, but it's not upended.
Mhm.
And that's really the goal, to kind of, streamline and improve the learning experience without introducing a lot of friction or pushback.
How did you get started in this?
Yeah, so for years we've been working in partnership with Apple, and early on we were equipping field service companies with iPads to replace their paper forms. And what we were hearing from certain trades was that these devices could meaningfully streamline the way that they operate, reduce a lot of costs, and we got a lot of traction in some of the trades like mechanical contracting and plumbing, et cetera, et cetera. And once we started outfitting the contractors successfully, there was like a little bit of back mapping in their minds about, well, hey, like if this is working so well for the contracting companies, why don't we introduce this technology into our training programs so that when the students arrive to work on, or the graduates arrive to work, they're proficient on this software. So the evolution was working with these mechanical contractors and end users, and then basically becoming involved with the pipeline that feeds them with their workforce. And it's been great. I mean, I can't say enough wonderful things about the trades and tech schools we work with. The people are just, they're genuine, they're hardworking, they all kind of have a shared goal. The nice thing is there's really no political undercurrent. Everybody in these schools, for the most part, they all came up through the trades, and their goal is to make sure that the manufacturing world and the construction world have really competent, eager, well-trained workers for the future.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, because we're all can see some of the problems uh, that, because we've ignored the facts for so long, we've kind of had the approach, well, you know, going into these factories is, it's dirty, dark, dingy kind of thing. Well, most plants are not that way anymore, first of all.
Hmm. Hmm.
Second of all, the pay scale has greatly improved. And if you do any kind of specialized welding, you can easily make $100,000 a year. But I
Hmm.
think that we've are start only now starting to realize that not having people take this other path. If you've ever played the game Life, as a kid,
Sure.
you had two paths. You could either go to college, or you went on and you were started down your career path.
Hmm.
And I think that we kind of lost sight of that one path does not fit all. Everybody isn't designed or wired to go down the road of a college education. Everybody isn't destined for business. Everybody isn't destined to go work on Wall Street. It just doesn't make sense from
Right.
a societal standpoint of what that
Hmm.
is. So we know that we need different career paths for people. in order to exist and proceed as a society.
Yeah,
It,
I couldn't agree with you more. And now that these alternative career paths are paying six figures, as you say, to people that are willing to work hard and maybe have, certain specialties. So you have that income level, you have, the job security. One other thing that's important to keep in mind is that, this wave of AI is coming, and there are, many professions where AI will replace the workers. But what I can tell you with certainty is that no AI program is going to be able to weld a pipeline in the snow, or, frame a house and, pull conduit as you used to do. So, um, you know, um, these careers have become very, very appealing to a lot of, people, and you don't have the tremendous expense of college, and then you also don't lose 4 years sitting in a classroom when you could be earning, if in fact, a trade or, technical career, better suits you. Obviously, it's not one size fits all. This career path fits many, and the college career path fits, many. But as you said before, it's no longer like the primary and then the secondary. They're
right.
they're equally as viable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, what do you see as one of the hurdles for trying to get this implemented? What are you seeing areas that are challenges for us to try and overcome? And
Yeah,
how
I
can
think
we make that happen?
yeah, the greatest challenge that we see, which is now waning, is that sometimes the decision makers or instructors, they have a history of learning and teaching a certain kind of way because that's how they did it for years. And when they were early in their career and going through their training, a lot of this technology had not been developed. So what we see is that sometimes they're slower to adopt this than other decision makers that have kind of grown up with it. But there's been a really significant pivot in the last couple of years, I think, for two reasons. Number one, it's just become so apparent that technology has a fundamental place in most industries. And also, I think some of these people that are, towards the latter part of their career now, they're seeing their grandkids come home from middle school and high school with an iPad under their arm, and all of a sudden, it's not so far-fetched.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we see as the one of the bigger challenges, and time will cure that because a lot of these hardworking people will end up retiring, and more and more people will come into this world that just natively accept technology as a fundamental part of learning and one's career.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because when I grew up, when I was in high school, I grew up with the Apple IIe. I grew up with the Sinclair computers. It was
Hmm.
just fundamentally starting uh, that whole marketplace of a personal computer. Before that, it
Sure.
was all business computers, and that was their target market. And nowadays, it's incredible the technology that kids grow up with.
Absolutely.
They
I mean, yeah, to your point,
immersed.
and I'm sorry not to interrupt, but you and I probably grew up approximately the same time, and the advent of computers was very exciting, but you had to swap floppy disks to get Lotus 1-2-3 to run. So to get a spreadsheet up, it took 6 or 7 minutes, right? You had the operating system, and then you had the load, and then you had your data disk, but nobody minded because it certainly beat, ledger sheets. Um,
Mhm.
so, when you think about that, wasn't that long ago, and how far this has all come. And you held up your smart device, and it's just incredible when you think about what you can do on that device compared to what was required 5 or 7 years ago to accomplish the same things. I mean, the list is it's a very long list: spreadsheets, video, calculator, magnifying. I mean, it's incredible.
Right, right.
It,
Drafting is a great example of that, of how far. When I grew up doing drafting, it was on a drafting board, and you had
yeah,
a T-square. Now, pretty much you may still learn that way, but almost everybody drafts using some form of uh, computer-aided drafting today.
yeah. And if you've ever seen the ENIAC computer, which was one of the first computers that filled, half of the first floor of an engineering school and could really only do basic arithmetic, it's mind-boggling to think of how, of where we've come. Back then people were really excited, but in any event, yeah. So
Yeah,
super, super exciting times. Technology will continue to accelerate in adoption and progress. And schools and workplaces need to kind of keep up. And
yeah,
that's kind of where we see our place is enabling that to happen, because as more advanced software comes out and more advanced manufacturing and construction processes, all of that can be captured and delivered through an iPad in any trade school or technical school.
I am incredibly excited about this development. Steve, thank you so much for being on here today. Uh, tell everybody how they can reach out to you.
Sure. So best email address is steve.metzman, Metzman, at connectedapprentice.com. So steve.metzman at connectedapprentice.com. And I'll give your audience my cell phone number. So my cell phone number is 215-850-5565. And our 800 number is 800-434-7963. So again, 800-434-7963. I love what I do, and I would welcome any of your listeners to reach out to me or the team, and we'd love to talk a little bit more about how we might be able to help you, and kind of opportunities to streamline manufacturing or education and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I will put your information in the show notes too for this. Uh, Thank you to Steve, of course, for being here, and thank you to the Precision Metal Forming Association and all that they do for helping to advance education and workforce development. And Steve, you are a huge part of that as we continue to move forward. So thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, my pleasure. And Dean, thanks for the opportunity to be here. Very interesting, and I appreciate your time.
Great to have you. This has
Okay.
been the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. Make it a great day.